then you have to specify the number of seconds. Okay, after which the alarm signal has to be generated. So here is the example program. So this is the main program, and this is signal handler. Which is signal it is going to handle? Sig alarm signal. Okay. So when this signal arises, this one will be called alarm handler function will be called. Okay. So here in this main program we set alarm of 5. So after 5 seconds the process has to be interrupted through this signal. That is the meaning. Okay. So alarm will be generated. It is an event, it will be generated, then sig alarm signal will be generated. So here we are iterating the loop from 1 to 5. See the output. After 5 seconds an alarm signal sent. So after sending that, this signal handler will be executed so that you will be getting a message alarm signal sent. After that, the remaining numbers will be printed. So the process can interrupt itself by using alarm signal by setting alarm of how many seconds. So you have to write signal function and then signal handler function to handle that signal. Same thing. Then next one, user identification. So, like your roll number, each user will be identified, right? So, identify a user by a value called user identifier. So, how it's like your roll number. So, how you are identified. Similarly, a user can be identified through this number, user identifier. So, there are three types of user identifier which will be changed. It is dynamically changed as per the privilege of task. So, it will be changed dynamically. So, there are three kinds of user ID: real, effective, saved user ID. Okay, real, effective, saved user ID. So we'll see what is meant by real user ID and effective user ID. So real user ID is nothing but it's like your roll number. So the real owner of a process. For example, I am number 1 and Balamohan number 2. Okay, so I am number 1, Balamohan number 2. So we are the real owners of the uh, we are the real owners for that number. Okay, I am number 1 and Balamohan number 2. Okay, and then effective user ID is also the same thing. Real user ID, whatever you have, the same thing. Okay, so each process has an effective user ID that says which user permission it is using. So I am having some permissions to access files. Similarly, Balamohan also having some access permission to access the files. Okay, suppose assume that I am having read, write, execute permission for all the files, and he is having only read permissions. Okay, read permission for all the files, whereas I have all read, write, execute permissions. Okay, my number is 1, Balamohan number is 2. Remember, my number is 1, his number is 2. Okay, suppose Balamohan want to access all the files. He want to perform read, write, execute operation. So in that case, he can get my number. Okay, in the meantime, he has to store his number in some other location, right? So he is borrowing my number. So I am giving my number to Balamohan. So my effective user ID one will be utilized by Balamohan. In the meantime, he has to store his effective user ID to some location. That is called a saved user ID. So he will store his number 2 in saved user ID, and then he is getting my number so that he can perform all kinds of operation on files. Is it clear? Is it clear? If so, type single S. I am repeating. My number is 1, Balamohan number is 2. Okay, I have read, write, execute, access permission. That is, I have all the operation permission for files. Okay, whereas Balamohan having only read permission. Okay, so my real user ID and effective user ID both are 1, and Balamohan real user ID and effective user ID is 2. Okay, now he want to perform all operations on files. So what he has to do means he has to store his effective user ID in some location. So that is called a saved ID. Okay. After that, he will get my number. So I will give my effective user ID to Balamohan. So I will give number 1 to Balamohan so that he can do all the operation on files. Okay. After that, he will return that number, my number 1 to myself. Then he will restore his saved ID to the effective user ID. So he will getting back what permission he has. So that will be there in saved ID. So that will be restored back to his effective user ID. Okay, is it clear? If so, type double S. Okay, so real user ID means the owner of a process. So my number one, Balamohan number two. Effective user ID also same. My number one, Balamohan number two. I have all access permission. I have all operation permission for files. Whereas he has only read permission. Okay. Suppose if you want to do all the operation on files, then he has to get my number. Okay. In that situation, he has to store his effective user ID in saved ID. Okay. After that, he will get my number. He will do all the operation on files, then he will return my number back to me, then he restore his effective id from the saved id. That is the meaning. Okay, so effective user id used to control access to files. That is the purpose. Okay, and the real user id is for user to user communication. So saved user id, it contains copies of effective user ID. As I told you already, it contains copies of effective user ID. So when the program is executed. So when a program running with elevated privileges needs to temporarily do some unprivileged work. So we are using privilege work. So I am using some privilege work. In that case, I want to do some unprivileged. So this unprivileged work permissions available with Balamohan, then I can get it from him. Okay. In the meantime, I have to store my effective user ID and saved user ID. That is the meaning. Okay. So later, I can get my effective user ID back from the saved user ID to resume my privileges. Okay. Then user identification function. So how to find the login name of a user who is running the program. So we will be having a function. Through that we can identify who is the user. Okay, so you have to include this header file, and you see here get login function provides a way to fetch that login name. So you can fetch who is the logged person. That information you can get by using this system call. So get login, no parenthesis, simply you are getting the login information. So return type is pointed to the string giving login name if okay, otherwise error, null on error. See here, so this is the example program. We have declared a character pointer. After that, by using get login, you are getting the login information which is there in D. So now we are printing the value. See the output. We are compiling this program, then we are running the program. So it displays the login is Pavitra. So I have entered through the name Pavitra. So it displays the login name as Pavitra. Okay. Then same thing, get login function you are getting. Here we are checking whether it is equal to null or not. That's it. Otherwise, the remaining things are same. So again, the same thing. By using get login function, you are checking whether it return any string or not. If it is not, if it is equal to null, then it is an error. Otherwise, you are printing get login return. What will be the value? Who is the user? So that login information will be displayed here. So get login return Pavitra. If you are clear up to this, type single S in the comment section. What about others? Do I have to repeat it again? So you can get the login information of the user through this function. So we can get the login information, who logged in. So such information we can get through this function. You have to include this header file. So the value which is success pointer to the string giving login name. If the function okay, that is on success, it returns a pointer to string giving login name. On failure, null. So through login function, you are getting who is logged in. So that string get login will return a string which is pointed by D. So you are printing login is Pavitra. So I have entered with the name Pavitra. So it is pointed to the string giving login. So in this case, I am the login user Pavitra. Then the same program, here we are checking for null. That's it. So here it is not a name value equals null means it is an error. Otherwise you are displaying who is the person. So get login return Pavitra. So see here, see the prompt. The username is Pavitra. So that will be returned. So the login information we can get through get login function. Then changing the user IDs. As I told you already, suppose I have some privileges and Balamohan not having privileges. If you want to access the then he can get my ID. He can make use of the ID to access all the files. Then he can return my ID back to me. After that, he has to restore his own ID. Okay, same thing. So when program needs additional privileges or need to gain access to resources that they are currently aren't allowed to access, they need to change their user or group ID to an ID that has the appropriate privileges or access. So here I have the privileges. So this is my ID. And Balamohan need additional privileges, but he don't have that access permission. So what he will do? He will get my number one. He will use it. Then he will return my number. Then he will restore his own number. That's it. So program need to lower their privileges or prevent access to certain resources. They do so changing their ID or group ID or group to lower the privileges. Suppose I have privileges to access all the permission, but I want to lower myself. That is, I don't want to have the privileges. In that case, I can get the Balbohan number. Okay, so that I am moving from privileges to not unprivileges. Okay, so now I don't have privileges. By using the Balamohan ID, after that I returned my number, sorry, his number. Then I will restore my number back. So I'm using number two for some amount of time. Then I'm returning number two to Balamohan. I am getting my number back, number one back from saved ID. That is the meaning. So who is having privileges, who is not having privileges, they can interchange their number. Okay, suppose if one person having privileges to use something, another person is not having privileges. Suppose if that person want to utilize the privileges, then he can get the number who is having the privileges. That's it. Okay. Then what are the prototypes to change the user ID? So here these are the prototypes, the functions. Through this we can change the IDs. So this is to first thing you have to include this header file. This is to set user ID and this is set group ID. Okay, so both return 0 if okay. So whatever value you are passing, that value will be set to user ID and group ID. And here this is for set real and effective user ID. So this is the function to set real and effective user ID and this is real and effective group ID. Same thing, real and effective user ID, real and effect group ID. So here again both return 0 and this one on failure -1. So real user ID, effective user ID, real group ID, effective group ID. Here you are passing. And then coming to set effective user ID, set effective group ID. Individually also we can set. So here you are passing an ID that is set as an effective user ID, effective group ID. Okay. So whatever number you are passing that can be set as an effective user ID, effective group ID for a process. So on success return 0, on failure -1. So here is an example. So first you are printing what is the value of user ID and effective user ID. So prior to this function, what is the value of UID and effective user ID? See here, both having the value 0. And then we are getting that value through this function, get user ID, get effective user ID. So both returns the value 0. Now through set user ID, I am setting the value 25. So now we are setting 25. As I told you already, user ID and effective user ID both are same. Okay, so here we are calling set user ID not equal to 0 means that you are setting the number. So here the control comes here after set user ID. What is the value of these two? See here 25 is set to both user ID and effective user ID. So again by using the function we are getting the information we are getting the user ID and effective user ID. So here we are setting the value 25. If you are clear up to this, type double S in the comment section. Hello. I will tell you again. So through functions, we can set the user ID and the effective user ID. So set user ID, sorry, through set user ID function, we can set a user ID. Okay. So we can get the user ID information through get user ID and get effective user ID. So before this function, what is the value of UID and effective user ID that we are printing? So that prints the value 0. So after that, by calling set user ID, we are setting number 25 to user ID as well as effective user ID. So here you have not assigned with any number initially when you are entering to the college. After that, you will be assigned with a roll number, right? So this one, after assigning a roll number, what is your roll number? This function will print your roll number is 25 and you have the permissions. What permissions you have? Again, it is 25, same number. So user ID and effective user ID both are same. It's like your roll number, that's it. So through get user ID and get effective user ID, you are getting the information which you set for these two variables. If you are clear, type single S in the comment section. Then next one, system functions. So usually how the commands will be executed in Unix, through command prompt we will be executing, right? So through command prompt we will be executing the commands, right? For example, ls command to list all the files, who command to list all the users, then present working directory command. So that will displace the current working directory. So like that, we are executing the commands from the command prompt. Okay. But here we have one more facility called the system functions through which we can execute the commands from the program. Okay. So system functions. It is a convenient to execute a command string from within a program. So within a program, you can execute the command. So far we are executing the commands only in the command prompt. So in the prompt you will be typing ls, and the prompt you will be typing who am I, like that, right? But by using system function, you can execute the commands within a program. Okay. So for that you have to include this header file. Then this is the format in the system, within bracket you have to pass which command you want to execute. Okay, I will show an example. See here, all are system function, right? So within that I am passing the command ls command, echo hi I am Pavi, present working directory, date command, who command. So within a program I am using this function to execute this list of commands. Now see the output. First ls, then I am Pavi have to be displayed, then present working directory, date, and then who command. So first ls. So when I am executing this program, see the output. First ls command is executed. So it lists all the files. Then it displays echo hi I am Pavi. So it prints hi I am Pavi. Then it is present working directory. Next command. Then date command. Then who command. Okay, so only one login user, so that displays a single user. So like that, we can execute commands within a program with the help of this system function. Okay, is it clear? Type double S. Okay, and then one more example. Here, see here we are executing date, and then we have typed something. Okay, it is not a command. And this is who command. See the output. First one, system of date. So date will be displayed. Then system of we have written something. So it displays no such command because it is not a command. It is not a valid command. Okay. So it displays no such command. Command not found. Sorry. Command not found. Okay. Then it is a who command. So who are all the logged in users? That information is displayed. Then it is exit of 44. So program is terminated. Normal termination. Exit status is 44 will be displayed. So if you are passing an invalid command, then this function will check whether it is a valid command or not. If it is not a valid command, then it displays the message command not found. Then the remaining commands will be executed, which is correct. If you are clear up to this, type single is in the comment section. Okay. So up to this, the fourth unit is over. We'll send you the remaining PPTs for the fourth unit. In the next class, we'll start fifth unit. Okay. Take care. Bye. Thank you.